The anxious attachment style in the bedroom. And yes, it does affect how we interact in the bedroom. Please go to my YouTube channel to learn more about how the anxious attachment style is formed in early childhood. And so what does it look like in the bedroom? So folks with this style, they tend to fall in love very, very quickly, and they use sex for approval. And they tend not to trust in their partner's desire for them. Oh, you're so awesome. How could you possibly want me? They'll also sometimes appear clingy, needy, and they'll even use sex as a way to get their partner to pay attention to them. So this is really important that you look at this. Working with a therapist is super helpful to arresting these behaviors. And so I want you to think a little bit more about what that looks like. And let's just kind of talk casually through this. Like, what does it look like? Typically, these folks, I want to just kind of use a person that I have in mind that I've worked with. This person met this wonderful man, and he would say things like, well, I'm so busy with work, I'd really prefer that we meet on the weekends. And in her mind, she was saying things like, well, I don't understand. If he really cared about me, wouldn't he want to see me during the week? So not really respecting the boundaries and not using those boundaries as, okay, this is healthy for us. The boundary became more about a rejection. So there's this perceived fear of abandonment and rejection. And so when healthy folks put up these healthy boundaries, the person with the anxious attachment style in the bedroom is like, well, they don't really want me. So they might like do that text that says, hey, you up? And send that screenshot of them scantily clad, or to provoke that person into violating their boundary in order to make themselves feel secure. So these folks oftentimes, it's interesting, because they have this anxious style, it makes them sort of a little bit fearful. So and it's ironic because this will feel dichotomous. They tend to have more sexual partners, but they're more likely out of all the attachment styles to use a condom because they're worried about getting something. So that fear does help them, but it also has them sometimes trying to use sex as a way to validate themselves. And so they'll tend to have more sexual partners. So hopefully all this kind of makes sense. And if you go back to some of my previous YouTube videos, this style, it usually starts in childhood. In fact, it doesn't usually, it does start in childhood. And what happens is they tend to have a caregiver or a parent or both parents who have more of an inconsistent style of attending to their needs. So it could be a parent who is hyper focused, like, oh, why aren't you, Johnny, getting these good grades? And then when Johnny is getting good grades, kind of not really saying much, like inconsistent, hyper focused one time and then not as focused at other times. Or having parents who are, and we see this a lot in only children, parents who are hyper focused on them, always worried. Little Johnny got a B, and now, oh my gosh, Johnny's not going to get into the school. Johnny's only 8, but the parents are kind of freaked out about it. And so they have this anxious attachment style that things aren't good, but then they also can sometimes be hyper focused in one area and then minimizing in other areas. And so that is a style that can produce this sort of fearful attachment style or worried attachment style, hence the preoccupied anxious attachment style. And so in the bedroom, these folks oftentimes they're more likely to be pushed into or and pushed and coerced is pretty strong, but their partners can talk them into doing things that they don't want to do. They'll do it even if they don't want to because they're fearful of their partner rejecting them or leaving them. And so they often will do things that they don't want. Again, these are the safety crew, so they tend to use those condoms, but they tend to have more sexual partners because they're trying to get those needs met, and because they feel like maybe sometimes that sex is the only weapon that they have, meaning that, okay, if I really want somebody to love me, then I need to be, you know, super sexy. So you might see them wearing very risque outfits, and because they're wanting that love and acceptance, and they want their partners to say, you're worthy, because they often doubt their own worthiness. Ooh, excuse me, guys, I'm outside and sometimes there are bugs around. Anyway, I hope that this helps. This is so important because you may recognize, damn, you know, my partner keeps asking me to do this and I do it, but I really don't enjoy it. But I'm so worried if I don't, that they're going to leave me or not want to be with me. Or you're wanting to be with someone and the only way that you feel that you can get them interested is to maybe even be promiscuous or consenting to sex too soon. And so our attachment styles can deeply impact the way that we show up in the bedroom because we're trying to get those needs met. And so for this anxious attachment style, I highly recommend working with a therapist. And you want to be working on things like self-worth. That is really important. And oftentimes this can be done in conjunction in a relationship, or it can be done before you even decide to get in relationships. I prefer the latter, working on that self-esteem and then putting it to the test, testing the waters, going out there and starting to date, and then working with your therapist or your relationship coach about how to engage. Because when, as Maya Angelou says, when you know better, you do better. And that's what's important. We want to change the way we view those attachments so that they're not so fearful, so we can make different decisions and we'll show up differently. I'm Chantel Cohen. Leave a comment. Let me know, how this, how this shows up in your relationship, or even if this resonates with you or somebody that you're in relationship with. I'm Chantel Cohen, and I'll see you guys soon. Follow us on YouTube. Thanks so much.